It's a new year. That means we've got new movies, new TV shows, and in the case of the MCU, a new phase. So today I'm going to stop and rank all 9 2023 MCU projects based on my excitement. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the 2023 MCU projects based off of your excitement. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. I based this off of the current information we have about release dates. A lot of these don't have official release dates, so it's kind of guesswork a little bit. I'm pretty sure several of these will be delayed to 2024. With that said, let's get started. In last place, Agatha Coven of Chaos. This to me feels like content for the sake of content. Now, I'm currently rewatching WandaVision, and Agatha Harkness is a fun side character in that show. She's a solid addition to a show led by other people.
It's been Agatha all along.
And I killed Sparky too.
But WandaVision doesn't really do a lot to set her up in a way that makes it seem like she could carry a show on her own. It doesn't lay the groundwork for this compelling narrative. And so it's just tough to see how this is a good idea for a show in and of itself. Now, the lead writer of this show was the lead writer from WandaVision, and WandaVision had some of the more interesting ideas and creative things in phase 4 of the MCU. So that gives me a little bit of hope, but I need to see a trailer to help me understand what this show is even going to be to actually realize that mild amount of hope that I have. Also, keep in mind, I was very negative on WandaVision throughout the announcement phase, the trailers, and even the first 3 episodes. I didn't really get hooked on that show until episode 4. And so maybe this will be another case to where they've got this great, compelling, interesting twist, something new and fresh for the MCU, but it's not easy to capture with the title or a trailer. I guess we'll see. Number 8, The Marvels. This is one where I just don't know what to make of it. It's a follow-up to both Captain Marvel as well as Miss Marvel, while also spinning off a side character from WandaVision.
You're Ralph Boner? Boner.
It's 3 very different characters from 3 very different contexts doing kind of a team up, and it's not really obvious what the dynamic will be amongst all of them. The plot description that they have put out thus far reads like this. Following the events of Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, Kamala Khan, and Monica Rambeau begin swapping places with each other every time they use their powers and must team up to figure out why. That plot description doesn't really appeal to me, like a character swap story with characters that we haven't met yet or haven't seen interact with each other. We don't know the dynamic between them. Doesn't jump out to me as super compelling and interesting. So that doesn't draw me in. And then the director of the film did The Candyman from a few years back, and I wasn't the biggest fan of that film, but I thought the direction, her contributions when it came to the visual style was actually pretty good, but I don't know how that translates to a Marvel movie. So there's just a lot of things here that nothing pops out at me in particular. Like, I liked Miss Marvel, the character, but I'd be more excited for Miss Marvel Season 2 than I am for this project as is. Next up, What If Season 2. Now, I'm actually a bigger fan of What If Season 1 than most people, and so in a sense, I'm looking forward to what they're gonna bring to the second season. I think they've said that they're gonna like factor in phase 4 type stories, so it's gonna feel a little bit more like it's tying into more recent events than just kind of going so far backwards like season 1 did. But at the same time, without knowing exactly what those stories are, without seeing the trailer, it inherently kind of has this novelty vibe to it. It's a gimmick type show. So it just doesn't draw me in. It doesn't have that urgency to check it out without having something more clear as to what I'm getting. So despite the fact that I thoroughly enjoyed season 1, I thought there were some very cool things in there, without having more specific details about what it's going to do. Just kind of like, yeah, I mean, I'll be excited eventually for this, but at the moment, it's kind of like, okay, that's a thing that's coming out. Number 6, Ironheart. Black Panther Wakanda Forever gave us a nice tease of Ironheart and what to expect from her. Now, you can certainly debate whether her character felt a little bit too forced into that movie, and she didn't have much to do in the middle act, so she was just kind of there for an hour of the film doing nothing. But that aside, what I felt the movie did well was give me a flavor for her personality, the type of story that she has, and make me go, yeah, I'd like to spend more time with this character, in which case it did give me a good tease for what this show will be. Now, the showrunner for the project has a pretty broad resume. She's done a lot of different things, but she hasn't done anything that gives me a good idea of what an MCU project from her would look like. So it's kind of some question marks in terms of kind of the writing, directorial style of what exactly this will be. But I felt Black Panther Wakanda Forever, in terms of introducing us to this character, did a good job of making me go, yeah, I'm more interested in that now. And I got a phone call. Number 5, Echo. In a lot of ways, much like Agatha Coven of Chaos, this feels a little bit to me like content for content's sake, where they take an enjoyable enough side character from Hawkeye and spin her off into her own show, but without doing enough legwork in Hawkeye to make me think this character can carry a show. There's a story right there that I want to see. I want to go further down that path, and I don't feel like Hawkeye did that. So when I did my first draft of this list, this show is several spots lower. But after doing some research, there were 2 things that elevated this show for me. First off, it's that Kingpin and Daredevil are appearing in this show. And on the one hand, that frustrates me that the main hook for this show isn't the lead character or the story. It's borrowing my love for characters introduced on a totally different network by totally different writers. But there is a lot of borrowed love there.
I think you're in a unique position to do some real good. And She-Hulk can help people when the law fails them.
They picked 2 characters I really do want to spend more time with. And in the case of Echo, there are strong ties to Kingpin. Obviously, Kingpin has strong ties to Daredevil. So it makes sense that there's some ties there. It's just, of course, it would be much better if I was most interested in the lead character than in side characters that might only be in a little bit of the show. The other thing that really elevated up to this spot was that the showrunner was a longtime writer for Better Call Saul, which is one of the best written shows of all time, certainly of the last decade. And she has writing credits on 21 episodes of that show. So that's like a third, 40% of the episodes of that series. And that's a big win. When you bring in someone with that kind of writing caliber, that is something that gets me excited, even on a project with a character I'm not as excited about. You've got a writer that can get me excited for the project, and hopefully you get some of that character nuance, complex storytelling of Better Call Saul in this series. We'll see what happens. Number 4, Loki. Now, I really enjoyed the first season, but with time I feel like I'm not as crazy about it as a bunch of you, so maybe placing this one at number 4 seems a little bit low for you, but that's kind of why. With this series, it's kind of where the multiverse got introduced with what happened in the finale of season 1. We got introduced to our initial Kang variant there. So now that we jump forward a few years, we're a lot deeper into the multiverse saga, and this will be after AntMan and the Wasp Quantumania, where Kang really gets introduced. So I'm really curious as to what this show looks like in a season 2, post Kang introduction in the full-blown multiverse saga. That has me very curious. And a trailer for this one that really teases some interesting stuff could even elevate this one much higher up for me. Now, with Loki season 2, there was a lot of turnaround in the writing and directorial staff. The previous lead writer for the show got a promotion. He's currently off writing Avengers Secret Wars, and the director of season 1 didn't return, so they brought in the people that directed several episodes of Moon Knight. But the guy that they have doing the writing isn't kind of a totally new person. It's someone who's been working with the original lead writer for several years on multiple different shows. So it's not like a big change up. It's just not the same person, but it's someone that's in very much the same vein as the original writer. Anytime you have major change ups with the showrunner, lead writers, and directors, I have a certain amount of concern. But in this case, there's reason for those changes that aren't entirely negative, and there's enough consistency within the MCU house that I'm not really worried about it. So this should be pretty consistent with season 1. Real quick before I give you my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comments section. Share your ranking of the 2023 MCU projects based off of your excitement. Also, I've done several different videos talking about my most anticipated projects of the year, where they're most anticipated films, most anticipated horror films, all of that fun stuff, as well as comic book movies. You can check those videos out somewhere around here. In third, Secret Invasion, the next Disney Plus series. And here, Nick Fury, who's been around in the MCU all the way since the first post-credit scene in the original Iron Man, finally gets to be front and center in the lead. And I love the fact that we're getting like a paranoia thriller in the MCU. I love that genre. It feels consistent with some of the ingredients that have been set up. And so doing kind of this Skrull invasion of the body snatchers, like who can you trust, who's up to what, all of that sounds awesome to me. They got some great new additions to the MCU with the people that they cast and are bringing in. And they're pulling a bunch of these kind of side characters from several projects and having them here. And so there's a lot of things that kind of get me really excited to check this one out. I'm a little bit nervous because it is that 6-episode structure that I think they hadn't fully cracked the code on in phase 4. Hopefully by this point in time, they've been able to even that out a little bit more. But even last night, I rewatched the trailer and I was like, yeah, I'm excited to check this one out. And it seems like a very broken Nick Fury, who's maybe lost his way a little bit. And that's kind of interesting when you kind of take the full spectrum of where we've seen this character, whether you're talking about prequel stuff with Captain Marvel to him leading the Avengers, and then now maybe seeing a version of him that feels perhaps broken over the failings that took place in Infinity War. I'm interested to see where they're going with all of that and what they're kind of doing with his character and allowing him to have kind of a journey and an arc. Our runner-up, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Now, the first 2 Ant-Man films were intentionally small-scale follow-ups to Avengers movies, and here they're kicking off Phase 5, introducing Kang with an Ant-Man film, and it feels that it's going to be the biggest Ant-Man film while at the same time going into the very small quantum realm. And I'm very curious how this is all going to work out. We got our second trailer last week, and the whole thing had a serious tone. Ant-Man's known for being the most lighthearted of the MCU franchises and having this fun and funny tone and vibe that the first 2 movies were almost outright comedies, and they put out this trailer that doesn't have any of that.
I don't have to win. We both just have to lose.
It's just focusing in on the themes, character arc, motivations, and the stakes, and how dangerous Kang is and how tempting Kang can be. And that has me very curious. They're not leading into their strengths of Paul Rudd's likability and just natural sense of humor. They're putting the weight on the villain, the story, and just the conflict driving all of it, both in our characters internally as well as for the universe as a whole. That has me very interested. And the fact that they're taking Ant-Man, who was kind of, the minor character, it's just an Ant-Man movie, you can sit this one out, and making it this major piece. Post-Endgame, he got kind of a major boost as now being one of our Avengers and being in this incredibly high-profile film. and they're treating him that way. Now, we'll throw in kind of this one concern. My good buddy Griffin, Film Speak, put out a thread of tweets yesterday kind of voicing the fact like he loves the first two Ant-Man movies. Maybe he's their biggest defenders, and the big reason for that is the fact that they're small scale. That's their charm, is that it's not these world-changing consequences. That's what made them interesting and different, is their small diversions. They're personal, and they don't have the weight of the world. And here, it starts to look a lot like so many other Marvel projects, and has that vibe of them. And even though it's going small in the quantum realm, it kind of feels like some of the cosmic stuff. I think that's a valid point. Like, does the Ant-Man franchise lose its uniqueness by getting bigger, having stakes, and going more serious? I guess we'll find out next month. But coming in at number 1 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. If you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know that one of the hottest takes on my channel is the fact that I was not a big fan of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. But at the end of the day, I adore the original Guardians of the Galaxy. And the holiday special that came out just a couple months back just reminded me how much I love these characters and spending time with them. And my issues with Volume 2 weren't something that made me like cynical towards James Gunn or the franchise. It was just something that felt like a misstep. It was the wrong direction to take it. I know it worked for a lot of people, but it didn't work for me. And so the idea of closing out this trilogy, spending more time with these characters, has me very excited. It's also one that just has such a bizarre backstory with Gunn being fired, hired by DC, being rehired by Disney, still working for DC while making a Marvel movie, and then getting a new job from DC before the Marvel movie comes out. It's wild, and all happening at the same time. It just makes me fascinated by how this is all going to work. James Gunn knows how to tell stories that have a lot of heart, have a lot of laughs, but also can be very tragic. And so knowing this is closing things out, just wondering which of my beloved characters is going to die? What sort of finale is it going to have? I don't know. I'm very excited to see what he's going to do. And so for me, this is the one that I'm most excited to see. So it comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video, remember I got more of these anticipated videos. You got most anticipated movies, most anticipated comic book movies, some other ones, I don't know, somewhere around here. Thank you so much for watching. Keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.